Hey everybody, Cole here with Classic Mini DIY, and today is the next episode of the Bad Wolf mini build. Now, if you guys have been following, you know it's been a little while since I released the last kind of Bad Wolf mini build video, and I mentioned in the last video that I am waiting on a few things to come back from the machine shop, back from the powder coaters, and unfortunately I'm still waiting for those things. And to give you a little information about what I'm waiting for, I've dropped the crank off and my primary gear at the machine shop, and it looks like the crank might actually have to get polished or ground down again, unfortunately. So that's kind of bad news, but they are taking care of that. The primary gear has to get a new rear bushing. So that stuff is kind of stuck there until it gets taken care of. Now, as far as the stuff that's getting powder coated, it's suspension related things, and specifically one of the most important things I need are the camber brackets that hold the radius arms on. And so since that's not done yet, I can't put that part back together. So I have been trying to put together kind of some odds and ends I need to do here. And some of that stuff is related to the radius arms, some of that stuff is related to the fueling system, and some of that stuff is related to the engine bay. So that's kind of what I'm going to be doing in this episode. This is kind of, I guess, an odd jobs episode. You know, the videos I used to do, just kind of random stuff on the car, because I don't have the big stuff to show you right now. Let's get out to the Mini, and I want to show you guys the fueling system, because today we will be finishing the AN conversion on the fuel system, as well as reinstalling the fuel tank in the back of the car. So let's head out there. All right, so hopefully this isn't too difficult to see, but what we're looking at here is the underside of the car. Now, this right here is the floorboard. This right here is the recessed spot where your wheel goes, your spare tire. And what we're looking at here is my electric fuel pump, as well as the filter and pressure regulator. Now, as you can see, there's no lines connected to any of this, but there is some fancy AN fittings here. And what I am just over the moon, I'm so excited about this, because one, it makes everything much cleaner, and it also makes it a lot easier to work on. And what we're doing here is doing what's called an AN conversion. And so right here we've got a small black fitting that attaches to that fuel pump, which allows me to connect the 6 AN size fitting, as well as a hose connector up here. As you can see, there is no hose yet. But this whole setup, this is actually where everything was mounted already. It's crazy to me that this is basically perfectly sized in order to fit this AN stuff. And I'll have one hose that goes up to the fuel tank up here, and then I'll have another hose that comes over here to the top of the fuel pressure regulator, the inside, and then this will run out over here and to the fuel line, which is just in frame in the corner here. This fuel line goes up to the front of the car, and then obviously all of this allows the fuel to move through it. Now you can see here I've got some wiring underneath the car that I've got to clean up a little bit. It's connected obviously, and this is how it's been sitting for a while. I'm kind of surprised that it hasn't grounded out or anything, but it hasn't. All has been good. And what we are going to do first is take these fittings off, and then we'll attach the AN lines inside the garage where it's a little bit easier to work on this stuff. All right, so now we are back in the garage, and what we're looking at here is my new AN line. This is braided stainless steel around a rubber hose. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this open. I'll show you guys. That is some beautiful hosing, and I am really excited to put this in the car. So before I get into this, I actually bought some black hose. This is in just some regular braided like nylon, but man, it's really pretty. Unfortunately, I bought the wrong size, so I have all this extra hose that I'm not going to be able to use, but the braided line I felt would actually be a little bit better for underneath the car, since it does get a lot of rain and water and just road debris and everything like that. I think this is going to hold up a little bit better. But for those of you who have not done anything with AN lines before, it's both very, very cool and can also be very frustrating. In the case of my Mini, I'm not actually going to be doing a full 100% AN conversion on this fuel system. If you remember, the fuel pressure regulator didn't actually have a place where I could take the old fittings off. And while that would have been really wonderful, it's just not something that's in the cards, and I really don't want to buy a new pressure regulator. That one works great, and it just doesn't make sense to change it. So what I'm going to be doing is is I'm going to be taking this AN line, I'm going to feed it in here and create two ends of fixed AN lines. This is going to be tight, it's not going to leak. And then on the joints, obviously they're hard so they don't leak. And then this will mount into the fuel pump. But the sides that I can't attach to an AN fitting, I'm going to be using a kind of a finishing ring. At the end of the day, it's literally just a hose clamp, but it's this blue material around it that just makes it nice looking, finishes it off. These were like $1 each, and obviously that's a little bit more expensive than, say, just regular hose clamps would be, but it looks so much nicer. I mean, I think we can agree. So first off, let me just say I am not an expert at putting AN lines together, so don't use this as word of law if you're trying to do an AN conversion. But the way I understand it is you are actually going to press your AN lines into this fitting here. So you're going to slide that in, and it can be a little difficult, especially with these braided lines because they like to fray at the ends. But you can use a little piece of tape around the end. I'm going to go ahead and just use the ends that already are covered. And we're going to go ahead and feed all of this in. Now, I'm probably going to have to put this on the bench vise. I think this might just be a little too difficult to do bare-handed like that. Now, I know for sure there are special mounts that allow you to put this AN line into these fittings, and there's all sorts of bench vise attachments and things like that. I am going to try and do this a little bit kind of like lo-fi. We'll see how it turns out, but I'm sure that using the right tool for the job is probably, you know, a lot to be said for that. And I've said it in my live streams actually that using the right tool for the job is generally the best course of action. But here I go, not taking my own advice. All right, that is exactly what I was hoping for. So we've got our stainless lines coming down from the fuel tank. So you've got one short line here with a hard connection here to the fuel pump with another 90-degree connection right back here, running into the top of the fuel filter, pressure regulated, fuel filtered, and then running out and down and back to the front of the car. That is tidy, and I am very, very happy with the way that turned out. All right, so next up I have something that I've been really excited to do. It's super simple, but I have a locking gas cap, and I had a locking gas cap, I should say, and I finally replaced it because it was so old, it was so messed up that I was actually using a screwdriver to unlock it. Now I have a proper fuel filler cap, which locks properly, I think. I haven't tried it yet, so who knows, maybe it won't work. There we go, locked up. And then I can return my fuel filler cap, which is literally just a cover for the existing cap. Now, I think this thing's really cool. Some people are kind of like less into these things, but me personally, I think that looks neat. So I'm gonna button this back up there in the position I want, and then the fuel tank, as well as the shock absorber. I'm not sure if you guys saw me put that in there. I can't remember if I took a video of that or not, but don't forget to put your shock absorber back in before you put your fuel tank in, otherwise you'll be kicking yourself. So all that took was 2 Allen keys, and it tightens right down onto that filler cap. And then I want to make sure that I don't lose the key, because that's really important for me to be able to get in here and open up my fuel tank in the future. All right, so the next thing that we're going to be doing, now that we have that fuel system all connected, is a few things under the hood. And as you guys know, there's no engine in here right now. And what that means is it's basically the easiest time to be doing work on this engine bay. So what I want to do today is I want to install a small little weather strip down the sides and edge of the bonnet hood, as well as possibly on the edge of the actual body of the car. What that's going to do is prevent things from scuffing up and kind of allow this to sit nice and tight down in there. That's little. Obviously that'll just take me a second. The second thing I'm going to be doing is creating a new panel to cover up this hole. Now, if you've got a little bit later car, they actually sell like kind of a thing that goes inside here and seals off this hole. The Mark I Minis, however, have their speedometer and all of their electronics right there at the back of this hole. And what that means for me is that that blanking plate that can go in here doesn't really work. It just doesn't fit. So I used to have a piece of aluminum in here, but it was big and it didn't work with the HIF 44 carburetor that I had. Well, I don't have that carb anymore, and I'm probably not going to be going back to that single carb again. And because of that, I have the ability to fix this up and make it a little bit nicer. So first off, let's put that trim on here. Shouldn't take but a second. All right, so this next part is actually going to be pretty easy as well. You just need a few special tools, actually really just one special tool. The rest are pretty straightforward. What I'm going to be doing is using a piece of this sheet steel mixed with some weather sealer. It's going to be like a compressing foam on the back side here when it gets screwed in and pressed on. And then what I'm also going to do, I'm going to use a manual method, which is really, really easy to do. It's simply just a set of tin snips. You can pick these up for like $10 US at pretty much any hardware store. And I'm going to actually just cut this by hand. Now what I want to do is kind of get a good measurement of this. This isn't going to be 100% perfect. It's not going to be a perfect circle because this isn't a perfect circle. This actually is kind of like I don't even know what kind of shape this is, but it gets flat up here on the left corner. But one thing I do want to offer up is my oil line. This is my oil pressure line. And then I want to offer up my speedometer cable. And I want these to actually go through the plate this time. I don't want to actually run these down and out the bottom like I did in the past. I think it's going to look a lot cleaner if I've got 2 grommeted holes for these to pass through. So that's something that I'll want to consider. The speedo cable will want to come out like right in the middle here. And then this oil pressure line, maybe I'll run it out the side. This side, I haven't decided yet. But before we get started, I do want to show you guys what I used to have in here. So I originally had a piece of aluminum. Then I changed to this. This is a type of like plastic. I think it's called like Tyrex or PEX or something. I'll have a link in the description if you want to use this, but you can see it's kind of molded and shaped, and obviously it's not perfect, but it did fit into that hole pretty nicely. And what this allowed was for clearance room, obviously not that well, for the HIF 44 to sit back into this, whole center speedometer area. I don't need this anymore, but I use just like a foam insulation on the back. This is going to get ditched. We're going to make it nice and pretty. So I think I can level with you guys. I know this is not the most beautiful thing in the world. And to be honest with you, I really wasn't going for the most beautiful thing in the world. If that was the case, I would probably have somebody who's much better at metal fabrication than me to build up something that looks good. But for me, what I was interested in is solid sealing, which I think I'm gonna get with this. I'm gonna test out these screws here and see how everything goes on. And then if we get a nice tight seal, I'm going to add one more screw over here. And then I think we'll be ready to roll. That's all right. It's not too bad. Granted, this is not going to stay this bright silver color. It needs to get a little bit darker. In fact, this is probably going to get coated with that rubberized 3M black paint that I got for the other one. But that's not so bad. I'll need to get a new grommet for this one because that's torn. But this grommet looks good. That fits in there really nicely. And I think that this is going to provide a nice sound deadening and to help prevent fumes from the motor getting into my passenger compartment. All right, folks, and that wraps up this episode of the Operation Bad Wolf kind of odds and ends jobs. I know that this was not a super long episode, and I'm sorry about that. I just don't have a lot of stuff that I can really complete right now, and I don't want to get super deep into something that I can't finish for you guys. Now, hopefully, I'll have the stuff back from the machine shop. I'll have all my bearings and everything, and we can kind of put together the motor. But until I get those back, I can't really put that back together either. So if you have any questions about the stuff I did in this episode, or you guys maybe have some questions about the build in general, or things I've done in past episodes, feel free to post them in the comment section below. Also, a big thank you to my parts sponsor, 7 Mini Parts, for providing the parts that you see me use on this channel. The parts that are specifically Mini related all come directly from them. Also, a big shout out to my patrons. I'm going to be updating the support tiers. So if you donate $1 a month or more, you guys get a free sticker, which effectively is $2 off what I sell them in the merch store for. So as a thank you for you guys, I'll be sending those out soon. If you're already a patron, you're going to get those stickers in the mail here shortly. If you're not and you're interested in supporting the channel, head over to patreon.com/ClassicMiniDIY and sign up for maybe a month, maybe 2, maybe longer, and you'll get free access to a lot of really cool stuff, as well as some free stickers. But anyways, that's it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and until next time, enjoy those minis and motor on.